Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And in today's video, I am joined by Lucas, otherwise known as Wookie on his socials, on Twitter and Discord. And today we're going to talk about his Arachne list that he took to a recent Battle Hardened and had the infamous matchup with Jeremiah on stream, which triggered a lot of questions, a lot of different things. But yeah, we're just going to sit here. We're going to talk about the hero, talk about the matchups, talk about the deck, just have a good time and be able to showcase this hero that normally isn't talked about a whole lot, but has gotten a lot of discussion as of late, especially in the last few weeks. So Lucas, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm really excited to share my thoughts.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, like we were talking about before the podcast, once Arachne started getting attention, I was like, okay, we have to do something with this hero. Yeah, it's been good seeing like your progression and other ones, but before we get into it, I wanted to kind of just get your background in case people aren't familiar with who you are. If you just want to take like 5-10 minutes, kind of talk about what got you into Fab, maybe any prior TCG experience you have, and then finally like what got you on Arachne, maybe what heroes you started with and how you eventually got to Arachne.
Okay, yeah. So I've been playing. Okay, first off, I'm Lucas.
Yeah.
I play a lot of card games, mostly Fab anymore, but I did play Magic the Gathering for 14 years before this. Fairly competitively in the last 6 or 7 of them. I've played Hearthstone since its inception. I've played a smattering of other card games, but in the past year, I started a little bit after Everfest. I think when it comes to Flesh and Blood, I've played almost every hero in the game outside of some pesky illusionists. What got me hooked was I was bouncing around Chain, Briar, all these other heroes. Katsu hooked me into this game. It felt really nice having every turn being a puzzle that I had to solve. This was before he got, 2 sets of support.
Yeah.
So playing that hero was an absolute blast, and I wasn't playing him well by any means. This game is very difficult. But yeah, that's about my TCG experience. I've played almost all of the paper ones, with the exception of like the brand new ones the past couple years. But yeah.
Awesome. And then what originally got you on Arachne? Like what made you make the switch? Or is this could be just, hey, I just wanted to play this deck this one event and it was fun, but like kind of what drew you to Arachne a little bit?
So around this area, so I'm in the middle of Illinois. There's 3 Lucases. There's Lucas Oswald, who's by far the best of us. That guy's pretty good at this game.
Yeah, a little bit.
He's down in St. Louis. There's Lucas Birch, who's my best friend. He recently moved down to St. Louis. And then there's me. And I was always like playing ninjas, these aggro decks, like a lot of Fi, Katsu, some Rune Blades. And Lucas Birch was always playing Oldhim and Bravo and Dromai, all these like more fatigue style controlling decks. And I don't know, one day we just like swapped. I started playing Assassins, he started playing Katsu. Everything just like flip-flopped, and Arachne kind of gave me that spark that Katsu gave me when I started playing Fab. Where he's just a lot of fun. You play a lot of Flesh and Blood. I really love this game. So like, hey, I get to play 40 minutes of it every round. That's a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get to play more Flesh and Blood, and I love doing that.
Yeah, no, and coming from someone who obviously plays a lot of Katsu and now plays a lot of Arachne, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like one of the even though they're completely different style decks in terms of fatigue aggro, right? They both present the same question or the same predicament, which I think is the spark, is like, if you block me, I'm going to make you pay for it. If you overblock, that's good. Like, so Katsu's like, in terms of Katsu, it's like, if you don't block me, I'm going to destroy you. If you try to exact block me or like, cheat when you block me, I'm also going to make you pay for it. And then if you overblock me, well, then you're just helping my game plan, right? So like, and Arachne does the exact same thing. If you don't block Arachne, unless you can just kill him in 2 turns, he's really going to make you pay for it. If you try to cheat and like hedge and just barely block him, then he'll make you pay even more. So it's a similar predicament, at least from my perspective. Like, even though they're two totally different decks on the aggro control spectrum, they both present that same like combat trick mechanic, where I think kind of gave me my spark at least.
Yeah, so the Katsu and Arachne and Azuri, like both ninjas and both assassins, they really like to ask questions as opposed to sit there and answer questions over and over again, like say the Guardians do. So like you kind of are in the driver's seat a little bit for the game. Now, like obviously there's matchups where you're not, and there's matchups where you are, but like they can kind of like if you don't block Arachne, he does surprisingly do a lot of damage. Like, all of his cards are exceedingly efficient for what they are. And if I'm able to buy Black Tech Whisperers over and over and over again, I get a lot of go again turns where I'm doing 9+ damage on 3 cards and blocking your turns out efficiently, keeping an arsenal, and then you're still losing cards out of those interactions. So I enjoy the playstyle, and Arachne, he kind of plays like there's these characters that don't really play Flesh and Blood. Arachne plays Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
He attacks, he blocks, he attack reacts, he defense reacts. That's what he does.
Yep. Yeah, it's the pinnacle of how technically marketing wise Flesh and Blood's supposed to be played. Similar like that's why I love Axe's Dory so much, because I feel like that's like the pinnacle of like give and take, right? No pun intended. But yeah, so we're gonna get into the list, and normally for anyone out there, most lists go like, let's talk about equipment, let's talk about this card, and we will do that a little bit, but I really want to get into the cards that I know people are gonna ask and care about when they see a deck list down below, and plus some people just go straight to the deck list, they might come back. But the first one, the obvious one, is Regicide. This was probably what you've probably had 100 people ask you. I probably would think about this card. We saw it on stream. We saw, I think it was the blackout version too. You might have had, yeah. I have one too, just sitting here. I love that card. But yeah,
it's so beautiful.
Yeah, we saw it in your hand turn 1, and the casters just went nuts. And the whole, I'm sure you've watched the VOD over. The whole entire match was, when's he gonna play Regicide? When's he gonna play Regicide? It didn't end up happening, spoiler. However, talk about this card. What's your reasoning? I notice you have it in the main board. I don't know if that's just how the deck is, but like, just give your opinions on this card. Is it just kind of like, I'm playing Arakni, I'm going to have fun with it? Or if there's actual, your thought process, just kind of give us a little elevator pitch on this card.
Yeah, so Arachne, or Regicide, is Arachne's only specialization, right? And it kind of gets made fun of for not really being a good card.
Yeah.
I think the card is sneakily very good. The reasoning for it is it's like everything you kind of want in the deck already. It's a blue pitch, it's a block 3, so it checks 2 boxes immediately in just like general deck construction. Like Titanium Bauble is not the worst card ever made. But then in these late game scenarios, it's 3rd, 4th, 5th pitch cycle unblockable. It's just 3 unblockable damage super late in the game. And in this particular list, I'm not playing Flick Knives, so I lack a little bit of reach towards the end game. It's not necessarily for just the Royal matchup. Like, the Royal matchup is not something you want to see because it's Dromai or, like, Viserai. You're never going to get to a fatigue situation against Viserai. One of you is going to die. Every card in his deck does a damage.
Yeah.
So one of you is going to die. And against Dromai, the really only plan is fatigue. Like, sure, you can go for the big Regicide kill, but that card's so risky to actually play. You can block with it and codex it back later. There's a lot of interesting lines with the card, and I believe the deck needs more blue pitches, and it's just a good blue pitch.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people don't read the last line. Like, when they read, when the combat chain closes, you lose the game. I legitimately think over half the people don't actually read the last line of text, which is what makes the card good. Because like you said, the obvious 99% use case, if you were to use it, is on Dromai, if they're on Royal. And I think one thing, that people seeing this card, I don't know how much subsidiary effects it'll have in the future metagame, right? It depends how much Arachne's played. But this may force a Dromai when they see Arachne flip to like not go Royal, which probably helps you even a little bit more, maybe because they can't go as fast. It really depends. But regardless, like, yeah, but I was watching with a buddy, and they had forgot what the bottom of the card said too, and they were looking at you look through their banish zone. I was like, well, yeah, everything in their banish zone if they have the same card in the deck, they can't block with it. So he's literally checking to see, okay, what cards could be in his hand, what cards could he block with, can this actually hit? So like, yeah, that's what a lot of people don't realize is this in a 0.01% chance could be just a game finisher, right? Because if everything's in their banish zone, they literally can't block it. So unless they have like a sigil or something. But regardless, yeah, this was a fun one, and I've added to it. Like if you're gonna play Arachne, you might as well have fun with it. So put this in the list.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I mean, I've never killed a royal hero with it personally,
Mhm.
unfortunately. I did. We were playing in the Battle Hardened in Chicago, and
Mhm.
I watched all the blood leave a Viscerai's face when I pitched it on turn 1. That was fun, but I've killed a couple players with it just because they couldn't block it in
Mhm.
super late game scenarios.
Mhm.
I've died to it more than I'd like to admit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. At the end of the day, you can just block with it. If you get in a weird enough situation, just be like, "Hey, it's a block 3, pitch blue," like you said. So, yeah,
Exactly.
definitely want to get your thoughts on that because I know other people are going to be thinking about that. But we have a couple other ones here. The first thing I want to talk about, I guess we won't go spot by spot with your equipment. But we will talk about a few things. The one thing I told you in the DM was Orbulocast over Nerve Scalpel. So like I know that was it seems like a choice, and even a couple other really seasoned Arachne players that I talked to here in Dallas were like, I want to know why, right? So what was your decision point with not only mainboarding Orbit but leaving out Nerve in your list entirely?
So Nerve Scalpel's huge interaction point is with Flick Knives.
Mhm.
You know, you attack with a card. They go to sink below it. You throw the dagger at them in response. The sink below only blocks for 3. You get your on hit.
Mhm.
I'm not playing Flick Knives at all in my deck list.
Mhm.
So I just want my daggers to be active in every matchup. So whether I'm playing against an Islander, who
Mhm.
may or may not have any attacks in their deck, or a Fi, I want a dagger that's gonna work in the matchup.
Mhm.
So Orbitoclast is gonna work for like the Islanders and the Dromais, because you know the dragons are the 3 blocks in their deck, and those are the cards that block efficiently. So
Mhm.
I kind of want to tone those down when I actually do get to attack my Dromai opponent.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I mean, you're gonna play Spider's Bite. Spider's Bite is the best dagger.
Mhm.
But other than that, I enjoy Orbitoclast. I think Nerve Scalpel is good, but since I'm playing the Shriekrazers, I decided to cut the extra dagger from my deck list,
Mhm.
and it let me play the 3rd copy of Remembrance, which was very good
Oh yeah.
on that day. So
Oh yeah, your poppers. Like
I'd
I was
say it
like,
worked out.
your poppers
Yeah,
came at. I mean, that's how it has to work in the drama matchup. This isn't a
yeah,
negative comment, but like your poppers came literally at the picture perfect time. Like just seeing the
yeah.
look on the Jeremiah's face of like, are you kidding me? I think there was one time where you hit with an already dead, you played Remembrance, then the next turn you drew into an already dead, and then popped again with an already dead. Like that's the most tilting thing ever, and obviously it tilted the Jeremiah to a certain point, which we won't talk about, but. Yeah. So that's how it happens. But it's a good segue. Talk about Shriekrazers. Obviously, Flick Knives and Shriekrazers. I think when this card was first revealed, a lot of people were like, okay, this card's not as good as Flick Knives. However, I think, and at least with I want you because you're a better Rocking player than I am, but I have found that both cards have a use case almost. Like, is it worth the 2 slots? Probably not. But I've noticed, at least for me, in the faster matchups, Shriekrazers is better because you get the guaranteed block with still having the effect, but Flick Knives might be better in the slower matchups. But for you just mainboarded Shriekrazers. So kind of talk through that, your thought process, and just both cards in general.
Yeah, so I was kind of on that train. I read Shriekrazers for the first time. I was like, oh, this card sucks.
Yeah.
This card's unplayable. But I was kind of convinced. We were in the car driving up to the event, and I opened a cold foil Shriekrazers during pre-release weekend. So I was very excited that I actually got the card,
Mm-hmm.
because, it's an assassin card, and I'm playing assassin.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just go down the list of what Shriekrazers does. Like, it can be bought back with silver, which, assassins like to do that. Black Tech Whispers and Mass Perdition are both very good equipments for that reason, because they're just breakpoint blocks over and over again throughout a game if you're making silver. It's 1 Battle Worn, so it's 6th around after you block it, which is important because Mech just got a whole set, and T-Bone is a very powerful card, and Mechnologists hate Findle Spring Tunic. They hate it. So it's just another piece of equipment that can sit there and protect Findle Spring Tunic.
Oh yeah, because after you block with it, you can just keep blocking with it. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
I had -5 counters on a Shriekrazers in one game,
Jeez.
I was just blocking T-bones and shockwaves over and over again with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was working out well. And then it has the attack reaction, obviously. So the attack reaction is paying 2 resources as an attack reaction to give a attack action blocking assassin card -1 defense. And I will say that the effect is a lot more impactful in thought than in actual activation of the card. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I did not activate the card a single time this weekend, but a lot of the decks that like to perfect block breakpoints have to play around it because it's on the field.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Go ahead.
that's the hugest upside to the card. Like if I'm attacking Alexi with a Leave No Witnesses, they cannot give me arrow and their arm piece because I have a card in hand and I have a face up Shriekrazers.
Yeah, that was my
So
thought too. Was
yeah.
with Katsu. It's similar to Katsu. Again, you being a prior
Yep.
Katsu player, for us, like people always talk about value, and there's way better players than me about evaluating cards. But I like to look at implied value, and I even think like Bright
Yes.
Lights is a good actual full set concept of implied value. Because like you said, you would never have activated. It's like breaking skills. It's literally breaking skills.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, I may have not activated breaking skills the entire game, but I guarantee you, I influence my opponent's blocks 3 to 4 times because of breaking skills. So it's that same
Absolutely.
thing.
It's the threat of a shred in hand. It's the same thing. It's gonna make your opponents block strangely, and whenever they're using 2 cards to block by 1 card, I'm happy about it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's all we're really after. The implied value was fantastic. I talked to the Arachne that top aided into loose, and he said the same thing. He said he activated it like 1 time,
Mm-hmm.
but otherwise there was a lot of moments that he could point to where it made his opponent block strangely. And as an Arachne player, that's all we're really after, is making our opponents think and block strangely and make these weird kind of plays that are going to affect their turns so that we can block efficiently and then move on to our turn so we can continue to disrupt.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes complete sense. Yeah, most of the equipment's pretty standard after that, but yeah, I think for anyone out there that's wanting to play the hero, I like in my personal list, I have both. And like I told you, it's like in fast matchups, I'm playing Shriekrazers, and I'm like you. I open cold full Shriekrazers. I'm like, man, I gotta play this card
Yeah,
now.
I gotta play it,
I
right?
just
It's so
open cold
pretty.
full, and they're the gap between Shriekrazers and Flick Knives isn't wide enough to where you couldn't tell yourself, especially at a battle hardened level. Like, I'll just play this card. You know what I mean? So,
They're
um,
both very powerful,
yeah, they're
yes. They're
both
both
very
very
good.
powerful pieces of equipment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so getting into that after the equipment, the rest of it seems pretty standard. But looking at your list, we talked about it in Discord, and I kind of bounced the ideas around other Arachne players just to kind of get their thoughts too. Like, so you have a couple choices in here that aren't like I would say unusual, but they're not common, right? So the first one and kind of the one that's probably going to stick out when people look at it is Plague Hive. Plague Hive is a very good card. It's one that's used right in Uziris, and we've seen Arachnes use it. However, it's been out of the rotation for a while. For a list that mainly is going to fatigue most matchups, what was your thought process behind Plague Hive?
So the thought process behind Plague Hive is generally Arachne gets to play 1 to 2 card hands.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time you're attacking with Spider's Bite. It pays for Spider's Bite, which is pretty intentional, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And in almost every matchup, 2 out of the 3 tokens you give your opponent will be impactful. So if you're playing against, say, an Islander, giving them a Bloodrat Pox or an Inertia token is very good. Giving them a Frailty kind of sucks. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's a fun little mini game you get to play with your opponent. Could the card be cut? Yeah. It could probably be a Heartofendle. Would probably be better in the slot. I personally don't own a Heartofendle,
Yeah, I was about to
so
say most people
that's
don't.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Although they're on sale right now, only $300.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, but this could be
but
a third Death Touch. This could be another blue. Like you could do whatever with it. Yeah.
I generally don't like 3 copies of Death Touch.
Yeah.
I like my cards to block for 3, except for a few outliers.
Mm-hmm.
Death Touch generally is more of an Azuri card
Mm-hmm.
because you can swap it and you can play it from your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Arachne doesn't get that like grace with the card. Generally, you're blocking with it on a breakpoint, so you're
Mm-hmm.
giving 2 cards to block an infecting shot, and then it goes to your graveyard. It's ready for a Codex of Frailty.
Yep. Yeah, that was my
So,
original thought with Def Touch because I have one of, and this is for that very reason. I'm trying to block with it as fast as possible, and then it's a Codex target. So I agree with you on that one. So Plague Hive makes sense, and then the other one, which is a good one and one we normally see at yellow and red, but not as much blue as Findle's Fighting Spirit, right? It's a card we normally see in a lot of any fatigue list, right? We just saw it in the Dash fatigue list. We've seen it in Icelander, in Arachne. So what was your thought process behind specifically the blue Findle's Fighting Spirit?
so there are upsides and downsides to every card you put in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
The downsides to Blue Findle's Fighting Spirit are it doesn't threaten as much damage. It's not a popper. It's a 2-block. All of these are kind of rough. The upsides are life gain. So when you're perfect blocking, you're gaining a point of value. It's a blue pitch, which is excellent for your curve turns where you're going dagger annihilate the armed, or dagger eradicate, or dagger tunic counter CNC. All of those are pretty powerful plays.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted more blues in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
That was really it. When I built the shell of this deck list, obviously a few cards have changed in and out. It was Right as Rayo was going back to back on Battle Hardens,
Mm-hmm.
and Islander was good. Obviously, Dromai has picked up in popularity, so Islander is a little bit worse currently.
Yeah.
But I like my decks to have a good Islander matchup. I think that character is incredibly scary, and if I'm going to fatigue, I would want to have a plan because Islander is very good at killing decks that go to fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Icelander, I actually like Jeremiah. So Jeremiah is obviously a harder matchup, I think, technically.
Yeah.
However, I know exactly what I have to do in Jeremiah, right? Like the game plan's pretty like set and standard. The micro decisions are hard, but you know what you're doing. Icelander is very difficult. You don't know if you're playing Bullander. You don't know if you're playing Arcane.
Yep.
You don't know if it's worth blocking Arcane right now and going to fatigue. Should you push? Like I think shoring up that matchup might actually be more beneficial because you need to do it, right? Whereas Jeremiah, you're like, okay, I just got to fatigue, hit my poppers right, and hope to God I do it.
And I mean, there are other reasonable cases for Findle's Fighting Spirit. Like it kills most of the dragons when you attack with it.
Yeah.
So like I attacked with it multiple times in that game against Dromai, gaining a life every time,
Mm-hmm.
killing like a mirror guy or something. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still a card that kills dragons, like just not in the popper traditional way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just mostly for the same reason that Pablo Pintor was playing Blue Findle's Fighting Spirit in Bravo.
Correct.
Like,
Oh yeah.
it's just I took that reasoning. I was like, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That guy, he's pretty smart.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to him because I was playing Red Findle's Fighting Spirits. But the issue is, you just like a lot of the times you don't have the space to play the card.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a blocking card, it might as well pitch for blue.
Yeah, because Red, you always want to attack with that card 9 times out of 10, then block with it. It just feels really bad. But then you have to hold another whole nother blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of I totally get what you're saying on that. But yeah, most of the deck other than that makes pretty good sense to me. How have you felt?
Yeah.
I guess well, this wasn't on the list, but it's a new card. How did you feel about Already Dead? How did that perform for you over the event, and just overall about the card?
I enjoyed it. Obviously, it's just a popper in the Dromai matchup,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I'm here. But in other matchups, you can kind of do some interesting things with it. On your go again turns, you can try and bait out a defense reaction, and then banish that defense reaction with the Already Dead on hit to gain a silver. And it kind of answers this question of like, when you're playing Arachne, you get into these weird situations. Like, say I attack Alexi with Slay the Scholars, and I see a Rain Razors on top.
Mm-hmm.
And I can make the Slay the Scholars hit. I have a Shred or something. Do I want the silver more, or do I want to banish this power card more? And it's all game state dependent, because like if I have 1 silver and a Master Petition in my graveyard, I might really want that silver, so I can breakpoint block in the following turns. But I really don't want my opponent to have Rain Razors, so in this case, I might bottom it and hunt for a non-attack action.
Mm-hmm.
But with Already Dead, you don't really have to make that choice, because a lot of the power cards that in those matchups, you can just be like, yeah, leave it on top. You're not going to block because you're playing Lexi, and I'm going to go ahead and generate that silver anyway. It's also just like 6 damage is a lot. You got to kill some players. Like Arachne is a fatigue deck in general, but he plays a lot like a tempo-y mid-range deck where
you fatigue by attacking.
You fatigue by proxy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you fatigue on accident.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of decks that you can't fatigue and you have to kill them. Like Visceri. You can't fatigue those characters.
No.
They're gonna kill you before you can fatigue them. So you have to kill them. You
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of damage race. So 6 is a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it really came down to, and it's a contract trigger. Arachne's hero power is a little bit debated as being textless. I think it is arguably the most powerful part of the character.
I agree. Yeah.
And it scales. The better your opponent is, the better his hero power becomes, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you start to put holes in a very good player's pitch stack, it adds so much ambiguity to their game plan,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you an advantage because they have to think harder, and you're just la-di-da playing Arachne. So
Yeah. I agree. And even and this isn't a hit on anyone because I'm at this level, but like lesser players, like when you look at a card on top and it's not even a power card and you're like, yeah, I'll leave that on top. And they're like, crap, what do you just leave on
I got
top?
block 6 now.
Yeah, I got a block now. And some more skilled players might be like, okay, if you got it type thing and make you do it. But you know, at Armory and ProQuest level, I can almost 100% say like they're gonna be like, oh crap, what is on top? Especially if it's a Lexi, because they might immediately think Codex, Rainrazor, whatever it might be. Yeah, I had a turn I put on Twitter the other day where I banished. They synced this, I shredded it, and then I activated Mass, so I banished a Remembrance and a Fate. So I got 3 silver off of.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it was great. But no, I think the card's really good. I totally agree with most of your points on that.
I mean, you can like pitch stack it to late game where equipment is more relevant versus Arachne, and maybe you snag an equipment, which is huge, obviously. Like if you snag like I don't know, one of the Battle Worn 2 equipments, everything in the super late game is really big. Like any point of advantage you can strip away from your opponent, making it easier for you to cross that finish line.
Sweet. Yeah, most of the main board makes sense. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of the sideboard choices. Frailty Trap's a big one. Obviously, with the ninjas, as a Katsu player, I get so mad because I always tell. I've had some people argue with me on this point, but like, and it's fine to have healthy discussion. But they're like, the card's okay. I'm like, no, you don't realize how impactful it is to basically tell a Katsu you just pitched a blue for no reason. Like
it's 6-7 points of value.
Yeah.
It's so big in the ninja and ranger matchup. It's huge.
You lose 2 points off the Katsu, you potentially turn off Mass for that entire turn, and you just made them basically, it's almost like Winter's Bite. You basically made them pitch a blue. It's like a red Winter's Bite for no reason. Card's really good. The one card I want to talk to you about, and I almost DM'd you just because I was wanting advice, but Imperial Warhorn. How I know from my small experience level, it's good into Dash, right? Getting items to go away and you just recycle it with Remembrance and stuff like that. But like, talk about this card. Do you think it's worth it? Not worth it? When is it worth? When is it not? And just kind of give general thoughts about the card.
Okay, so I'm gonna be a little vulgar here.
No, that's fine.
I hate Imperial Warhorn so much. I think it's such a sacky and lame card. I think it's a little poorly designed for how powerful the effect can be. It needs the legendary tag, obviously, because otherwise it's a blowout. But yeah, it's for original Dash Inventor Extraordinaire. It's for Islander. It adds somewhere between 25 and 35% win rate to that matchup, finding Warhorn early. And like I said, when I designed the shell of the deck, Islander was a threat. It's a threat that I wanted to beat. It's a reason why I wasn't playing Azuri, because Arachne's matchup into Islander is significantly better than Azuri's.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it's just kind of a feel bad card. The second Islander goes away, you can stop playing it, in my opinion, and you can play. You get a little bit of card slots, so you can play something like Smashing Good Time. I think that card's a lot healthier. It's a lot better into Dash as well. There's been multiple games against Dash where I just found the Warhorn too late, whether it's like in the last few cards before my pitch stack, or they just set up like a pounder sitting there protecting their pistol items. It's a really feel bad card. If you don't want to play it, I would recommend not playing it, but I find it that it gains enough win rate in the Islander matchup to
warrant the one of them.
Warrant its inclusion.
Yeah.
Generally, I don't like the card. It feels bad for me if I don't draw it, right? Because I lose because there's 2 Frost Hexes on my side of the board and I get Insidious Chill comboed. or I win because I found it on turn 2 right after they set up a Frost Hex and Insidious Chill, and I just 2-for-1 them and Remembrance back into my deck, and it feels bad for the Islander player. So yeah, I don't enjoy the card. It's there because I think it's a little necessary, specifically for that matchup. And going into it, I kind of decided to sack the Dromai matchup entirely. Like you'll notice there's like 3 Go-Again cards in my deck. I'm not too efficient at killing dragons whenever it's not daggers killing them. So like I sacked the Dromai matchup, and that was one of the cards that came in to try and fix the other matchups that I think Arachne struggles in. One of them is Islander, obviously. We've talked about her a lot. I think that deck is still very powerful, and once they figure out how to deal with this new Dromai menace, I think the deck is scary. And Bravo. I am incredibly frightened.
I was about to say
of
Bravo
that
is
man.
if I had to,
He's so scary.
if you picked one deck I don't want to play when playing Arachne, it's not Dromai, because I know what I have to do to try to win that game. Bravo feels so bad because he'll hit you with especially the new cards. Like a lot of them are using those auras to give +5, +3, and like even cards like you have right here, Unmovable. Doesn't matter if you hit me with a 16 dominated Crippling Crush, right? So, obviously,
but
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Bravo is the reason for the inclusion of Unmovable in my sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
Unmovable does come in a lot of other matchups, surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
It comes in like the Levia matchup. It comes in against Dory. So there are these other decks that you can bring it in against. It comes in against Azalea.
Yeah,
which
Azalea.
is a big deal. Brody Sparlock was rocking Azalea over this past weekend. He was actually my first loss of the event in round 5. Is super duper tight game. It was a lot of fun. That guy's really good at the game. But it's super good in that matchup. It's all right in the Bravo matchup if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, which is just swinging an Othos every turn. I mean, when they swing an Othos every turn, you have a bad time because you're just like, he's not spending any cards. I'm taking 2 to 3 damage every turn, whether I'm giving him a card or giving him a sink below. And you're just like struggling as this aggro deck that can't really play an aggro game plan into Bravo. That guy's really, really scary. But the main plan for Unmovable in the Bravo matchup is you just try and pitch it when they pitch Crippling Crushes. So they pitch a Crippling Crush to try and kill you in the super late game. You pitch Unmovable to try and get that in your arsenal to match their Crippling Crush.
Oh, to equal their pitch stack. That makes sense.
Yeah. So you try and do that, which like it doesn't really work sometimes because like I do play Remembrance in that deck because you're very liable to getting fatigued against Bravo.
Yep.
But you can really try and line those cards up. And when the Bravo goes in for it, they take a full turn. They take 8 damage or whatever, which that's your game plan. You have to kill him. He takes like 8 damage from daggers and an attack, or an attack with Go Again, and then he comes in with Dominating Crippling Crush. You give him card Unmovable, and you take 1 damage, and you move on with your life. So that's mostly the game plan. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For the most part, it doesn't because they just swing an Othos.
Yeah,
it does so much damage, and it's really hard to keep up with that card.
You have to hope that you get lucky with some of your reactions, and that actually procs the question. And again, I know I didn't write this down. I'm giving you a couple, but they're not super crazy. Is Shred versus Cut to the Chase? I know that I run Red Cut to the Chases. I think after Red, it kind of severely goes down because I found when you if you throw a Plunder the Poor, right, people are just going to be safe in block 6 if they actually are going to block and they're smart. So Yellow Cut to the Chase doesn't do anything. You want to hit that one break point, but I guess really quickly, especially with Bravo, talk about Shred versus Cut to the Chase, and if there's not a strong opinion or general thoughts on that.
So there's a few cards I've been toying around with for the Bravo matchup. I've been toying around with Rob the Rich, so I can actually make silver in that matchup because Plunder the Poor obviously doesn't. Slay the Scholars doesn't really. You can hit very few cards in the Bravo
Showtime
deck
or something.
that
yeah,
makes silver. Yeah, he makes Showtime or Imposing Visage, something like that. Otherwise, I think you don't want to play Cut to the Chase very much unless you're playing Eradicate. And I'm not playing Eradicate in this current list.
Correct.
I'm toying around with it right now. I think it's in my deck currently.
Yeah.
I played it in the Armory.
It's such a love-hate card, to be honest.
Well, the thing about it is, it demands 2 cards from Bravo. It says,
Mm-hmm.
Bravo, you're gonna block with 2 cards,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise I'm gonna strip 4. Um, and it's very powerful with Cut to the Chase, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not playing the card. Assassin, it has these attack reactions. They're all really powerful, but they are all limited in what they can target. So, like, Cut to
Mm-hmm.
the Chase can
Exactly.
only target uh, contract cards.
Mm-hmm.
There's, like, Razor's Edge and the Spikes that can only target stealth cards. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to play the ones that block for 3, because that's what the deck is planning to do.
Correct.
Shred can target any assassin attack. So, super late game, you target a dagger.
Mm-hmm.
A card blocking a dagger, and it's lethal a lot of the time. That's how you kill a ton of your
I was
opponents.
about to say the
Is
amount of times I've won
shred
off
on a
of
dagger
that
attack.
is
Yeah.
a lot. Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've been trying and move and cart my deck towards Codex of Inertia. I think
Mm-hmm.
that card is really powerful and really underplayed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be, if not as good as Codex of Frailty, just a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
even.
Oh, really?
And I really want to play that card. I don't think Arachne is capable of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not my build of Arachne anyway. You have to cut basically all the shreds. You have to cut the Plague Hive. You have to cut the Regicide. Um,
Anything you don't
or
want to,
you
get off of a random draw, basically. Yeah.
yeah, anything you don't want to stick in your arsenal. Um, the attack reactions are kind of negotiable, because like you you just have it in your arsenal for your next turn, but you don't get that attack afterwards that makes Codex of Inertia so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think that card is really, really powerful. I think Azuri players should be toying with it and take the Codex of Bloodrot out of their deck. Uh, I think Codex of Bloodrot is terrible, and they should try and play Codex of Inertia. It's so good in so many matchups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as you're not afraid of the random draw with whatever it may be. Yeah,
Yeah,
like you said, you have to tailor your deck around, because, like, I think like Warmongers, Plague Hive, Regicide would all
yeah.
have to be
There's
out of
so
the
many
deck,
cards in
and Shred.
Arachne that
Yeah.
makes it unplayable.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome. So as far as going forward, two things. One is, are you coming? You're coming to Calling Dallas, right? I
oh yeah,
think.
absolutely.
Are
Yeah.
you playing on Arachne, or are you doing something different, or do you not want to reveal it? You can also
I'm
say that.
probably playing some Arachne. I
Okay.
mean, hopefully there's a lot of Lexis down there. I'm really excited to play that matchup.
Mm-hmm.
As she sunsets.
Mm-hmm.
Dodge all the Dromais. Unlike I didn't do that at all in Milwaukee. I played against 3 Dromais over the weekend. I went 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the matchup into Redline Dromai is as nightmarish as we all thought it was.
Yeah.
The matchup into Big Dragon it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, otherwise I'm excited to play Arachne. I've been thinking about Azuri, but I don't know.
I'm the same as you.
I like
Yeah.
the Arachne guy.
I don't know
It's
why I
fun.
like Arachne more. I literally, when people ask me like, "Why don't you just play Uzuri?" I'm like, I really couldn't tell you. I
It's
just
all out
like
of
the
spite.
thematics. Yeah, it's probably spite
Yeah.
too, being a rebel, but
It's like, no, I can play Arachne. I'm better
mm-hmm.
than my opponent, so I will.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the last question, this was actually on there, is it's kind of a drop in the hat question, but like, what do you think Arachne needs to be more competitive? Maybe it's a card, a archetype, or something you thought about. What are your general thoughts on what would put Arachne
Okay,
one step further?
yeah. There's a lot of thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a question in the Arachne Discord as of late. Um, my opinion slightly differs from the opinions of the mob. I would like him to have a little bit better action point economy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would like to do more than 1 to 2 things a turn. In general, maybe it's just a strong go again card. Um, but other than that, maybe a spec that I don't know how it would interact. Maybe another powerful contract card, like we saw Already Dead. It immediately made my deck. I thought the card was very powerful when I saw it. So I don't know. There's quite a few things, because like the powerful contract cards are very powerful. So like it kind of hits this point where if you print too many of them,
Mm-hmm.
the deck becomes incredibly unfun to play against.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, I think Arachne, while not the most fun to play against, because he's a fatigue strategy and people don't enjoy playing against fatigue in
Mm-hmm.
general. I love it personally, but
Yeah.
um, I think you hit this point where we probably can't print another too powerful contract card. Maybe it's another powerful attack reaction like Shred that kind of warps people's thoughts in the matchup. Because like whenever you're playing against an opponent, they're never like, ooh, cut to the chase. They're always like, ooh, you can have Shred. Because they know you play a bunch of Shred because Shred is so powerful.
No, I think I it's been really hard. I've been watching some of y'all's discussions, and everybody has their own thing. I think I stand by the fact that I personally think Assassin and Wizard are the two hardest classes to balance in the game because they're classes where if you overtune them just a percentage point,
so unfun.
They're going to literally ruin the game, whether it's because they're good or because they're not. Like, no one likes being killed at 33 life by a Kano. Yes, the amount of stuff that Kano has to do in order to get there is like insane. I don't know how they do it still, but like they do it, right? And same thing with Arachne. Like, if you give them just too much stuff, then it's gonna warp the meta insanely. But I agree with you on that. I think the one thing I thought would be kind of thematically cool that's not overpowered but just might add consistency is have attacks that don't banish but make silver on hit, like a go again. Like imagine a give and take that says on hit make 1 silver. Something where you could just buy back.
Where it was an attack with contract that didn't have the banish on hit but go again. So you could go like maybe like a head jab kind of statted card like 0 red pitch 3/3, and you come in and this card's looking for this, but it doesn't have the on hit banish, and then you follow it up with a contract card that on hit banish, and you would try and trigger both contracts. I think that works thematically, and you don't run into a situation where, hey, every single card I play this game is going to steal a card no matter what. I think that would be a solution. I don't know if they want to take the class in that way. Obviously, I don't know what they want to do with the class, but I like the little tidbits we saw from the expansion slot. So.
No, yeah, and honestly, if Jeremiah wasn't in, or not even just Jeremiah, if Icelander wasn't in the match, it wasn't in the meta. Arachne and Uziri both are viable options. Like, to be completely honest, because you don't mind playing aggro. Lexi's an anomaly that's kind of different, and she'll be gone soon. But like, I'm comfortable playing most decks. I think they have more of a place than people give them credit for. I know, like you said, Lucas Oswald, who is really good on the Runaways tier list, was saying I think Arachne is better than people give it credit for. So I think a lot of people just don't play it.
Not to toot my own horn, but I think that's because of me.
It plays against a good Arachne player.
Yeah, well, we played in Columbus, I want to say, and he was on Dash, and we ended 1-1. That was one of the games I lost to Regicide. He ended up producing 1 more damage over what my hand could block, so I had to give him Flick Knives to live through the turn. I had 1 card left. It was Regicide. I was just like, can you block it? He had like 11 cards in Banish from the whole game. He had 1 Fate Foreseen in his hand that could block. Every other card couldn't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was an astonishingly close game. But it's a lot of fun, and I hope to continue playing Arachne. I hope he continues to get a bit more respect. Because I do think the character is powerful. I don't think he's nearly as bad as people give him credit for. I don't think he's near where like Prism and Riptide are. I think he's much closer to Azuri, just a slightly different playstyle.
Awesome. Yeah, and that kind of goes in what I was going to say is like before we wrap up here is like for anyone out there who's maybe trying the hero or even, has looked at it, like what are your, general thoughts or, suggestions or anything like that before we close out, or just general thoughts on the hero?
Yeah, just like some random matchup tips.
Yeah.
You're just, at least on my build, I mean, there's plenty of different builds of Arachne. I think I'm exceedingly favored into Lexi. You can just fatigue her. She fatigues herself. So just block smart, attack with your disruptive cards. You'll win that matchup 99% of the time. I think I've lost it once in the past 6 months, probably.
Wow. That's good.
Other than that, if you're struggling with a matchup, I would recommend either playing the deck or watching content on that deck to learn what it's capable of, and that'll inform you a bit better on how to block smart. I've been receiving DMs asking me like, how do I block against Katsu? Well, it's like, oh man, the diatribe I could go into on how to block against Katsu is so expansive that it's not really like reasonable for me to do that. But other matchups, like if you're playing against a light blue aggro deck, say Azalea, Phi, something like that, just bottom their blues whenever you see them.
Mm-hmm.
Legitimately, it messes with their turns so much. When you're playing against Bravo, it doesn't matter what you bottom. You just have to get lucky.
Yeah.
When you're playing against Dromai, you have to hunt for the Tomotai.
Mm-hmm.
The Tomotai, getting rid of your AB is their goal.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean,
Nothing too crazy.
you have to play the character a lot to get
Mm-hmm.
those nuances. Tunic countering a CNC after a spider's bite is my favorite play in the game, so I'd recommend you do that. It's so much fun to see their face when they go, I have 4 arrows in hand and they all block for 2. I have 2 arrows in my arsenal, and I lose no matter what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, I agree. And knowing when a bottom is really good. Like I know even the other day playing against a Dromai, I was on Arachne, and I know for a fact I would have lost this game on Uziri because I bottomed a Miragai 3 times. And when I knew I wasn't going to be able to hit, or I wasn't 100% sure if I could hit, so I was like, I'm not going to take a chance. I'm going to bottom it. And I bottomed a Miragai 3 times and I passed Mirage once. And I was like, okay, again, in the Uziri matchup, that would not have happened. I would have not known. I probably would have played it. It might have not banished anything, and then they would have drew and played it. So I guess knowing that is really important.
In Chicago, I played against Mansa, and he saw 1 Blood Rush Bellow the entire game. I saw 2 of them. I bottomed both of them. He never saw Blood Rush Bellow for the rest of the game. So his high impact turns that are going to kill you, like Blood Rush Bellow turns, are what you're scared of in the matchup. He just doesn't get to have, because like, sure, I couldn't make it hit, and the Blood Rush Bellow is still in his deck, but later on in his deck, when he plays the Blood Rush Bellow, he's played all of his good attacks already. He's played all of his red Dread Screamers. He's played all of his Endless Maws. So you're dealing with the blue attacks. So when they're buffed, they're coming in for 6, which is very, very reasonable. So it kind of comes down to matchup knowledge. It comes down to what your opponent's deck is trying to do, and once you kind of get that down pat, the deck kind of, it doesn't necessarily, it helps out so significantly once you learn what cards to target. Like against Lexi, you can make it hit, keep that red infecting shot on top. Keep it on top. That card deals so much damage, and so much of the damage they're going to do to you is through Blood Rot tokens, because it's hard to perfect block that deck some of the time, and you have to keep cards in hand to try and tempo them. So
awesome.
You really have to leverage that Arachne hero power, like all other heroes. Like you have to leverage their hero power, and once you kind of get the hang of that, a lot of matchups become a lot easier.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Lucas. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Don't do this a whole lot, but I definitely want to bring people like you on the channel more that are playing heroes that we all love to play, but heroes that don't get the kind of spotlight they deserve at times. So definitely check out Lucas. All of his stuff will be down below. Twitter. He's in the Discord. I've seen you in the Arachne channel on the main Discord, so definitely check him out there. Asking questions. He's been getting pinged like crazy in that channel last week. Literally, every time I pop in there, it's you answering. Yeah.
Feel free to ask questions. I've been very happy to answer everybody, whether it's through DM or just asking me in the chat. You can ask me on Twitter. Just feel free to ask me. I'll share my thoughts. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm not. Who really knows at this point? But awesome. Feel free to contact me and ask me questions about my favorite assassin.
Sweet. And I'll see you in Dallas. And also, I'm going to put the link to the video of facing the Dromai down below too. So if y'all want to go do that, check that out. I'll put a timestamp on it if y'all have any questions. I've watched that video like 3 times trying to figure out certain stuff. So thank y'all so much. Thank you so much, Lucas, for joining us. And yeah, if y'all like this type of stuff, if y'all want to see more interviews like this, I would love to do it. Let me know who you'd like to see, if it's anyone specific, and we'll keep going. And thank y'all so much, and I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk.